Kuma is obviously an early riser and in an unreasonably good mood, considering that it's just starting to get light outside. Sebastian has no idea what time the four-legged friend is set to, or whether he just munched on the alarm clock for dessert last night. You couldn't escape the good mood even if you wanted to, especially when you wake up in bed next to Whip and your head is buzzing a little. What happened again last night? The memories slowly come back as Kuma waves enthusiastically at him from the side of the bed. Whip is obviously a deep sleeper and has not yet been hit by the morning wave of canine enthusiasm. Sebastian and Kuma's eyes meet. The advantage of the supposedly eaten alarm clock would have been the mute button. Now with Kuma you don't need to look for it, he has already turned around himself twice, seems ready to expand his drive, but is still a bit unsure how best to proceed this as there are so many possibilities. He's not allowed on the bed. It comes from the side, half asleep. Kuma tilts his head to the side as he makes himself comfortable on Sebastian's blanket. Technically, Kuma was already on the bed before Whip asserted territorial claims on the mattress area. Strictly speaking, Kuma was more on the bed than in the bed, but Sebastian had the feeling that Whip wouldn't really accept that. Maybe he just wants to get some fresh air, I'll take him for a walk. Sebastian could have saved himself that, because Whip seemed to have fallen asleep again. Sebastian weighed up what would give him more headaches and decided that the solution to fewer headaches might be both no barking dog and some exercise. Kuma put two and two together and was almost at the door before Sebastian had gathered his things. He must have been a bit bored at night, but Kuma had only carried his things around the apartment and spared Whip's. Admittedly, they had been increasingly preoccupied with themselves throughout the evening and had paid little attention to Kuma. Finally, they were both ready to go out and, thanks to Kuma's internal clock, Sebastian hoped so much that the internal clock wasn't actually an alarm clock, they made it outside in time for sunrise. Their path led them past a pasture with cows, only two of which were already having breakfast while the others were still dozing. They calmly acknowledged the joyful enthusiasm of the dog, who was only a quarter of their size. One thing you had to give Kuma, his joy of life and his desire to play always brought him into new constellations with animals that were normally not used to a dog in this proximity. Getting the munching ruminants to play or run after them was another matter, of course. He might have better luck later, but at the moment all he could hear was an annoyed moo, which reminded Sebastian of his headache again. This red wine was tasty, but Whip had clearly served too much of it. What an evening, she had told him a lot about herself, but the memories were a bit blurry. Kuma was always somewhere else and it was difficult to convince him that this should be something like a walk and not a wild romp around the neighboring properties. On the way back they walked past the bakery, with Kuma just walking past because there was a butcher's shop a few meters away. Through the half-open door, Sebastian heard Kuma being greeted inside and kept happy with some sausage, so he took the opportunity to buy something for breakfast at the bakery. Kuma had obviously pulled forward breakfast and on the way back he paid a slobbering visit to the stream that ran through the cow pasture. As soon as they got in the door, he retreated to the couch to reflect on what he had eaten. Sebastian put the shopping in the kitchen and then went back to bed. After they had breakfast, Kuma was still in a twilight sleep from his brunch, but slowly perked up as the two got ready to leave. When they arrived at the riding stables, there was a lot to do. Whip looked after her mount while Sebastian made his way to Stallion. Kuma was already trying to keep the ponies busy again, which earned him a warning look from Sebastian. Whether it was the after effects of the trip to the butcher or he was slowly establishing himself as an authority when it came to training the dog, the four-legged friend kept to himself and was content to sniff around a little while Sebastian greeted Stallion. Snorting, the horse in front of him came to a stop and lowered his head. Yesterday Sebastian hadn't consciously noticed the white spot on his forehead. The strength and exuberance fascinated him, but the hoofed animal had already bathed in the mud this morning and looked like a pig from the neck down. So there was no attempt to ride out, as it was up to Sebastian to transform him back into a mount using a hose and a brush. Stallion was still very nervous, especially when working on his hindquarters, but this subsided over time. For his first riding lesson, Wibk had prepared his saddle with a leather strap that Sebastian could hold on to with one hand for additional support should the mount feel like jumping after any kind of jump. With Wibk at the fence, visibly happy about the impending start of the show, Sebastian tried to get into the saddle using a mounted aid. Stallion acknowledged this with a slightly nervous look towards his shoulder and moved steadily up and down. The horse was briefly distracted by Kuma's frolicking, which Sebastian took advantage of to mount up. Stallion stood there completely rigid, and for a moment no one knew what would happen next. "He's still thinking," Wibk interjected, "hold on to the strap." Just in time, Sebastian caught the piece of leather on the saddle for additional support, while Stallion stopped neither walking nor trotting, but immediately broke into a canter. Hold on tight, he might just need a moment to vent, which was easier said than done at that moment. Although it wasn't that difficult, Sebastian noticed that his posture was far too tense and that he was making it harder for himself to hold on to Stallion. He almost felt a wave of calm coming from his hoof-wielding friend. "Sit straight, relax," it echoed in his head. A little frightened, he followed the inspiration and no longer held on so tightly to the belt. "Shift your weight back a little more," and he actually sat much more stable in the saddle, but that was secondary because the electric fence was getting considerably closer and Stallion wasn't slowing down. "Just don't let yourself be thrown off," he heard Wibk in the background and in his head at the same time, "It's been a while, but with this speed we can do it." "What can we do?" Sebastian heard himself saying aloud while Stallion pricked his ears in his direction and went jump-started. "Don't worry," it sounded in his thoughts, and they were already in the air. Wibk was speechless because it was only now that she realized what Stallion was planning to do, not to calm down, but to take a running start so that he could jump over the pasture fence, which at this speed was no problem for the muscular four-legged friend. Her hoofed animal wasn't quite as fast, but had more experience in the terrain, so she headed towards the stable to her horse. Sebastian couldn't help but smile. Stallion obviously knew what he was doing. If you followed the inspiration, he sat safely in the saddle and started to enjoy the ride. "You finally understand me," Sebastian winced, making his posture worse. "Hold it straight, why do you get scared when I talk to you?" Sebastian shouted, "Who is speaking?" "No need to scream, listen to me first and calm down." Stallion fell back to walking pace, which made it easier for Sebastian to concentrate on the inspiration and also to consciously take in a little more of the surroundings. They reached the edge of the forest and a path that led between the trees. Instead of shouting, Sebastian repeated in his mind, "Who is speaking?" "Now you're slowly starting to understand." "Stallion?" "Anyone else, shoulders back a little, sitting up straight is important for balance." Sebastian had to process that first, which gave Stallion the opportunity to send him further inspiration. "Maybe I should have told you beforehand what I was going to do, but the connection was just strong enough for you to even understand me. By now you know that I am more than a horse." "Who are you?" Sebastian said out loud, correcting himself and repeating the question in his mind. "It doesn't matter how you talk to me, but please just get used to the fact that I can hear your thoughts and answer you." A wave of concern rose in Sebastian. "By the way, I receive your feelings too, don't worry, the connection is now strong enough so that you can receive more of my thoughts." In fact, Sebastian received not only thoughts but also images and feelings. Joy that Sebastian Stallion understood, a deep, vague sadness at the same time new hope and confidence. Sebastian began to understand more, but he still didn't understand everything that was coming at him. "Sebastian, where are you?" he heard calling from the distance. That was Wibk's voice. Stallion picked up the pace again. "Please concentrate so we don't lose connection." Sebastian turned back to his thoughts and adjusted his posture to the new pace. "Trust me, when you're ready, slowly shift your weight forward and focus on our connection." Sebastian intuitively followed the instructions to figure out what would happen next. He received images from Stallion, could see himself through his eyes, from the outside and vice versa. How was that possible? A large clearing in the forest came into view. "It's fascinating to try out your new skills, but focus on what's ahead. Sebastian looked at Stallion's ears, which were pointed at him, then forward again. Concentrate on your and my true form, on what we can be, how we can be. A deep feeling of friendship and connection reached Sebastian, and an image of Stallion's true form formed in his mind. Now he saw it, what was missing and what Stallion was getting at, why he loved to run so much, why he was so fast, enjoying the whirling air around him. Could it be that simple? Was that the source of your opportunities? Honesty, kindness, laughter, generosity, loyalty, magic leading to friendship, trust and connection. Suddenly a unicorn appeared where the white spot on Stallion's forehead used to be. Do you feel the magic, the change, my hidden memories, can you reach them? There was something else, Sebastian felt it more and more clearly. The unicorn was only a part, but it facilitated connection and access to Stallion's hidden memories. But he couldn't remember why. There was more, but Sebastian now knew what Stallion would have to look like for what he had in mind. He focused on Stallion's new form. Stallion twitched, turned the ears that were pointed at him forward and lowered his head slightly. His body continued to change. Before Sebastian could fully understand, he leaned further forward and Stallion accelerated the gallop until they lost the ground under their hooves. They were no longer bound to the earth. Stallion completely morphed into the new form, using his wings and taking them into the air.
Look at you, leaning back on the hood of my Chevy. Well, damn girl, that thing never looked so good. And jump in, crank it up, drive us on out where there ain't nothing but you and me. Couple heartbeats, getting real close. I wanna hear you go, ooh baby, good and lazy, cover me up like country gravy. Underneath the shade of an old magnolia, let me chase that cherry cola with a kiss from your lips and lay you down, down in the dirty South. Baby, let's take it slow, like sipping good whiskey. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think that muddy water's telling me to wiggle you out of your blue jeans so we can take a dip for a little bit. Girl, don't you know I wanna hear you go, ooh baby, good and lazy, cover me up like country gravy. Underneath the shade of an old magnolia, let me chase that cherry cola with a kiss from your lips and lay it down, down in the dirty South. Ooh, like a honey on a biscuit stick is sweet. Ooh, girl, I want you all over me. I wanna hear you go, ooh, I wanna hear you go, I wanna hear you go, ooh, baby, good and lazy, cover me up like country gravy. Underneath the shade of an old magnolia, let me chase that cherry cola with a kiss from your lips and lay you down. Oh, just give me that kiss from your lips and lay you down, down, down in the dirty South. Down in the dirty South. Yeah. Underneath the shade of an old magnolia, let me chase that cherry cola. Looking good, hood of my Chevy, cover me with country gravy. Yeah, the muddy water's been telling me, wiggle you out of the blue jeans. Gonna shake it there for a little bit, take it down, down, down. Yeah. Let me chase that cherry cola underneath the shade of an old magnolia.